Hello, and thank you for joining us for our Dev Summit session, ArcGIS Enterprise, What's New? My name is Jill Edstrom Shoemaker, and I am a product manager on the ArcGIS Enterprise team. Joining me today in this session is John Emsch, the product advocacy lead for ArcGIS Enterprise. This session will be covering a lot of topics, everything from using to administering ArcGIS Enterprise. We know not everything may be relevant to your individual roles, but we intend for there to be something here for each and every one of you with us today. Before we get into what's new in ArcGIS Enterprise, let's take a quick moment to talk about what is ArcGIS Enterprise. Enterprise is the foundational system for mapping and visualization, data management, spatial analysis, and application building. It's installed on an infrastructure you control, whether that be in the cloud or on premises. It's your choice. And that can be on Windows or Linux, and soon Kubernetes. Whether you're a small one-person shop with a one-machine deployment, or a 1,000-person organization with 25 machines devoted to ArcGIS Enterprise, this product is scalable to meet you and your organization's needs. Enterprise is the backbone for your GIS workflows. If you're looking at a web map or a web application, there's a good chance Enterprise is powering it on the back end. It also integrates with ArcGIS Pro, such as with publishing workflows, and ArcGIS Online with distributed collaboration, and other products in Esri's suite of applications. So now that we are all on the same page about what is ArcGIS Enterprise, let's get to talking about the subject of why we're all here. What's new in Enterprise? The latest releases have brought new features and functionality related to mapping, analysis, administration, publishing, and data, as well as new apps and products that tie into Enterprise itself. In this session, we'll be focusing on Enterprise 10.8 and 10.8.1. 10.8 was released in January 2020 and is a short-term release. This means it will be supported for 3 years. It will be in general availability for 18 months and then mature support for another 18 months before being retired. 10.8.1 was released in July 2020 and is a long-term support release. This means it will be supported for 6 years. It will be in general availability for 2 years, in extended support for 2 years, and in mature support for 2 years. At the end of this session, we will also be giving you a sneak peek of what is coming in 10.9. 10.9 is scheduled to be released next month, in May 2021, and will be following a short-term support release similar to 10.8. I will now pass it on to John, who will be covering data and mapping.
Thank you, Jill. We're going to take a moment to discuss some data and mapping changes introduced in the 10.8 and 10.8.1 releases. To start off, we are introducing support for hosted map image layers. Fast rendering and updating are among some of the major benefits of using this layer type. Server-side rendering of complex symbology improves overall performance of web maps and web apps that use this layer type. All hosted map image layers are sourced from a hosted feature layer. Editing of the hosted map image layer can be done by editing the web feature layer. Publishing hosted map feature layers can be accomplished via ArcGIS Pro. ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8 introduces an update workflow for vector tile layers. This enables users to replace vector tiles with updated data while retaining older versions for archiving purposes. A built-in QA check alerts users if replacement data does not match the geographic scope of the original dataset. Additionally, styling can be manipulated directly from the map viewer. Taking maps offline is a familiar workflow for those who use ArcGIS field apps. As of 10.8, users are able to define offline areas using drawn polygons directly in ArcGIS Enterprise. This change adds to the existing option of defining these areas with rectangles and squares. Further bolstering this functionality, data managers are able to set up scheduled updates of offline areas to ensure field workers are working with the latest datasets. I'm going to demonstrate the new offline map features introduced in ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8. We're starting with a map of vendors in Southern California. I've ensured that the web map, base map, and included feature layer are ready for offline use. We're going to begin by clicking on the About tab and selecting More Details, which launches the Web Maps Item Details page. Once this page loads, we can then select Settings, and then select the Offline subtab. As we can see, I have already enabled offline mode, so we are good to go to identify map areas. To do this, we're going to click Manage Areas. Once the map loads, we're going to select Create Area to start identifying our offline area. For sake of example, let's say I want to analyze vendor sales of my product in the Long Beach area. We're going to select Create Area, and this will bring us up into the Create Area context menu. To identify the area, we're going to select the Sketch Polygon Map Area tool, and we're going to click and hold our mouse while we drag the polygon to the area of interest. Once I'm done, I can double click, and this will finalize the polygon. We're going to give this polygon a bit more of a unique name. Here we can also identify the level of detail. I would like this to go down to the room level, but don't really care about this being at the world level, so we'll set it to counties. And once this is done, we can also identify our update policy and enable scheduled updates. In this case, I'm making sure that we're updating every single Saturday at 6 a.m. If I wanted to, I could enable scheduled updates here. I'm happy with what we've done, so I'm going to click Save. And as soon as I hit Save, ArcGIS Enterprise begins packaging the offline map area. 2 REST API quality of life enhancements have been implemented at ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8. The clipping and spatial filter map service parameters can be called from ArcGIS Server's REST API to further refine client software requests. ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8 introduces a major change to how data store connections are made and maintained. Previously, all data store connections were made in ArcGIS Server Manager. This change decentralizes the workflow, allowing administrators and publishers to create their own data store connections in ArcGIS Enterprise. Once a data store item has been created, ArcGIS Portal will then create those connections at each federated ArcGIS Server instance, where appropriate. Any data store item creator is able to delete the item through the portal interface. These connections cannot be deleted from ArcGIS Server Manager once created. 10.8.1 enhances this type of data store connection by allowing bulk publishing synchronization and schema updates from the source dataset. Jill will take us through some new enterprise administration features in ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8. Go ahead, Jill.
Thanks, John. Now let's take a moment to talk about what's new in enterprise administration. Shared instances were introduced in Enterprise 10.7. Instead of each ArcGIS server service leveraging its own individual computer processes, called ArcSocs, a shared instance pool was introduced. This allowed for multiple services to use a set number of instances split among that group. Shared instances help resolve the issue of unused services consuming unnecessary memory. They are also a cost-effective option for any compatible services that don't need to handle multiple requests at once. What's new in these latest releases is the ability to choose shared instances or dedicated instances when publishing compatible services from ArcGIS Pro. At 10.8, shared instances will be the default for any new ArcGIS server sites. And at 10.8.1, services with server object extensions and server object interceptors, or SOEs and SOIs, can use the shared instance pool. Webhooks are part of an automatic notification system. They're the first step in this. A webhook can exist in your enterprise portal as an endpoint that is listening for a specific event, such as a user getting added to the enterprise portal or items getting updated. That webhook will then post a JSON payload to that endpoint within the enterprise portal every time that event happens. Next, what you can do is work with a third-party solution, such as Zapier or Microsoft Power Automate, to provide the next step in that action chain, such as an email notification to your inbox that new enterprise portal user was added. These are powerful systems that can automate administrative workflows. You can monitor from a distance instead of having to keep a close eye on everything. Webhooks were introduced with Enterprise 10.7, but with new releases come new options. At 10.8, we added the ability to be notified when new roles are created or deleted, when members' roles and user types are changed, when an item is deleted, and more. And we're still expanding on our webhook options available. At 10.8.1, we introduced the ability to send automated emails with ArcGIS Enterprise. This is done via integration with your organization's SMTP server. This can be done when a variety of events take place. For example, when a member in your organization forgets their password, this new email workflow will send that member a temporary password reset link that they can then use to reset their password after answering a security question. An email can also be sent when there's a change to the password policy. In this case, an email will be sent to the designated administrative contacts with details of the new password policy. A third example is a user type, a licensed app, or organization capability in your ArcGIS Enterprise portal license file is approaching expiration. An email will be sent to the organization's administrative contacts periodically before the expiration date. Plenty of time to ensure that you can reauthorize your ArcGIS Enterprise portal. All of this is done through the Enterprise Portal Administrator Directory, and our documentation outlines these steps. Now, we've been talking quite a bit about the Enterprise Portal side of administration, but there's been new features added to ArcGIS Server as well. In 10.8.1, you will notice a license expiration notice now appearing in Server Manager when any of your server roles or server add-on licenses are 30 days from expiring or have expired in the last 30 days. These banners, which can also be dismissed, appear for license roles and extensions. Read-only mode is now available for the ArcGIS Enterprise portal. It has been available for ArcGIS Server for a few releases now, but is now available for the Enterprise portal at 10.8. This is something that needs to be enabled through the Portal Administrator directory. When the Enterprise portal is in read-only mode, items, services, and data can only be viewed. Nothing can be edited, created, or deleted. You don't want any changes being made. ArcGIS Enterprise settings also can't be modified during this time. This read-only mode is a static view, and read-only mode can be invaluable when upgrading ArcGIS Enterprise deployments, creating backups, and making system updates. For example, you don't want to be creating a backup when a new service is being created. The goal here is to prevent data loss. Now that was quite a bit about what was new in Enterprise administration. Next, we're going to cover what all is new in the ArcGIS Enterprise portal. One of the first things you'll notice is that 10.8.1 looks a bit different than previous versions of Enterprise. This release has a redesigned user experience in the portal. This allows for you to view and update account settings and profile information. This redesigned user profile features an updated GUI and a consistent experience with the rest of the platform. You'll see these changes throughout the ArcGIS Enterprise portal when you're viewing your organization settings, viewing a user profile, creating content, sharing and moving bulk items, changing owners, resetting passwords, and bulk assigning groups from the Members tab. In previous versions of Enterprise, you could set the default user type and role for new members within the Enterprise portal. In 10.8.1, you can also set the default add-on license assignment and group member defaults for new members. The defaults are automatically assigned to all new members with compatible user types. For example, if your organization is set up to use ArcGIS Mission, you don't have to assign the license to your new members individually. It's now set for you and your members by default. Another new feature introduced in 10.8.1 is a new version management privilege, which can be added to custom roles. Portal members assigned a role with this new privilege can manage branch version locks and view, alter, and delete branch versioned data in ArcGIS Server feature services. Prior to 10.8.1, the portal user that owned the service, the publisher, the portal administrator, or any custom role that had administrative privileges granted had to administer these versions. There is feedback regarding the need for specific users to perform versioning administration tasks without having to be a portal admin. Hence, this privilege was created. When this privilege is enabled, users are also granted the ability to edit and edit with full control. This new feature allows for you to designate members who aren't necessarily portal administrators to be version administrators, who can make corrections in a version when completing quality assurance reviews. There are quite a few new group enhancements in these releases. There's a new option to hide the list of group members. This can be done as a group owner or as a group manager. You can choose to hide the list of the group members in the Members tab of the group when creating that new group. This new functionality could be useful for a city that has multiple contractors from different companies within one group. Those contractors can all have access to the same data within that group, but don't need to know which other contractors are working for this organization. This option allows for the city to protect the privacy of their contractors. In addition, administrative groups are now available, which ensures that members remain in the group unless they are removed by the group owner or a group manager. Users aren't able to remove themselves on accident or otherwise. Adding members to groups is now easier. Instead of having to search by a name, you can filter by user types, roles, and membership, sorting those results into a variety of ways. This is a better search algorithm for larger enterprise deployments. For example, you can have a group devoted to all your field workers and just search by user type to add them all to one group. You can also directly add items from within a group. Instead of having to find the individual item within your content, you can search for it. For example, in this Fire Department Maps and Apps group, you can search for all content related to fires through the group itself and then add them to that group. Many administrators have asked for a custom banner within ArcGIS Enterprise and ArcGIS Online that displays information, such as the status of the environment and important notices, and even classification levels. At 10.8, we introduced this new functionality with the information banner. Here you can customize a static message. This message will appear for every user at the top and bottom of each page within the Enterprise portal. Your banner can notify users of upcoming system maintenance, direct users to new resources or information, or even be used to distinguish your ArcGIS Enterprise environment from your ArcGIS Online environment. You can see this information banner in action, the blue bar on the bottom left. It has also been a common request to provide a pop-up notice that must be accepted before accessing ArcGIS Enterprise and ArcGIS Online. This new access notice appears as a dialog whenever someone visits ArcGIS Enterprise and/or any URL leading to it. Before granting further access, the user must accept the notice. If the notice is declined, the user is denied from accessing the environment. You can use the access notice in any way that suits your organization. A common use case is to require acceptance of terms and conditions before granting access to the environment. Now that's been quite a lot of information. Let's take a moment to see what this actually looks like in the Enterprise portal. Let's say that we're going to set up our Enterprise portal into read-only mode. We want to create some backups, and we want to make sure no content is created during this time. Now we don't want our users to be concerned things aren't necessarily working as they would expect, so let's set up an information banner and access notice to let them know that this is going to be happening. So here I am in the Enterprise portal. I'm already signed in as a portal administrator, as you can see. In order to set up the access notice, we're going to navigate to Settings. We'll navigate here to Security. Now over here, we can see that access notice is available to us. Let's set that access notice. We want this to be available to everybody accessing this, not just organization members, but even users, just to make sure they're aware as well. Let's set that access notice. We're going to display this notice for all users. So we'll call this notice read only mode, and we'll add some text. Please note that this site will be in read-only mode through Sunday, April 11th. We'll let our users either accept or decline this, and we're going to hit Save. Easy. Next, we will set up the information banner. We're going to make sure this information banner is displayed, and we need to provide some text. And here we'll type notice. Evening of Saturday, April 10th, ArcGIS Enterprise will be intermittently available due to maintenance. With that text there, we can also make sure to change any colors. So the background color is currently white. Maybe we want something a little brighter, like a bright green. We'll leave the font color as that dark gray, and we'll see that we still have a contrast ratio that is passing accessibility standards. So we're going to hit save here, and the information banner has been saved. If we scroll to the top, there we go. The information banner is there. Now we've been setting up everything to be in read-only mode, but we haven't actually enabled read-only mode on the Enterprise portal. In order to do that, we're going to go to the portal administrator directory. So here I'm already signed in, once again, with my admin account. Underneath mode, I can see that read-only mode is set to false. I'm going to update this, set it to true. Here we'll just hit update. And that's it. We're good to go now, and we can do our maintenance. At 10.8.1, we introduced the Map Viewer beta into Enterprise. Enterprise portal administrators can install and configure the Map Viewer beta for their portal members to try out. While you should keep in mind that this product is still in its beta stage and is not considered a final product, we encourage you to dive in and explore this experience. Besides the redesigned user interface, the Next-Gen Map Viewer offers plenty of new features. This Next-Gen Map Viewer is based off of JavaScript 4.x. These new features include symbology and pop-ups. Besides the redesigned user interface, this map viewer offers plenty of new features, including symbols and pop-ups and filters that update instantly when you modify them in your web map. You can print map layouts from the map viewer with more flexibility, including scale and DPI options. Users in the Enterprise portal will have the ability to choose between the map viewer and the map viewer beta. They'll be notified of the map viewer beta when they first open the map viewer. They will also be able to launch Map Viewer Beta from the app launcher and content and item pages for maps and feature layers. And because this functionality is in beta, updates will be made with new installers as they are released. At 10.8.1, we now have support for content migration between enterprise groups that are in different ArcGIS Enterprise portals. In order to do this, data must be shared to a group. All related data must also be shared to that same group as well for this workflow to be successful. For example, you can't just share your web application. You must share the associated web map and hosted feature layer as well. Once you have all the data in the group, you're set to begin the export process through the portal's REST API endpoint. Generate an export package from Group 1. This export package will consider item dependencies. Once the export package is created, it is now ready to be imported into the second ArcGIS Enterprise portal. This is also done through that portal's REST API. The import process will maintain the item IDs, item dependencies, and look to update reference URLs to reflect the import environment's name. Upon import, new content will be created in the designated group in the new ArcGIS Enterprise portal. This new feature is great if you're moving content between development to staging to production environments. You can even use it to move content between two disconnected environments. And even though this all takes place through the portal admin REST API, this capability is included in the Python API to aid in automation. Upon import, if the item to be imported already exists, there will be an option to overwrite. And with all of that in mind, I'm going to pass it back over to John to talk about apps and server roles.
Thank you, Jill. Let's take a moment to talk about updates to server roles and apps in ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8 and 10.8.1. Major updates were applied to ArcGIS Notebook Server at 10.8. One of the most notable is the inclusion of a built-in ArcGIS Notebook Server Manager, which allows users to view important statistics within Notebook Server deployment. At 10.8, users will be able to check basic site information, view how many containers are running and the health of those containers, analyze recent error messages, and see the status of each machine that constitutes the Notebook Server deployment. Notebook scheduling has been implemented at ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8.1, empowering users to automate tasks within their ArcGIS Enterprise deployment. Let's take a moment to check out updates implemented in other ArcGIS server roles. starting with GeoAnalytics Server. GeoAnalytics Server has added a swath of new analysis tools to the stack, including the ability to find dwell locations in point clusters, as well as calculate geographically weighted regression. This team has also added the ability of GeoAnalytics Server to write results back to Azure Blob Storage for larger pieces of analysis. The GeoEvent team introduced many major changes into GeoEvent Server at 10.8 and 10.8.1. Along with offering a new quick start guide, the team has drastically improved documentation for connectors and processors in GeoEvent. Users are now able to create inputs and outputs when working in a GeoEvent service. No need to have multiple tabs open. Finally, an integrated sampler has been added to GeoEvent Service Editor. This enables users to see how data is being transformed as it goes through a service and react to it accordingly. Finally, Image Server introduces a new set of multidimensional raster analysis tools, along with a new user experience for imagery content creation. Image services can also be configured to only use tiles, improving performance immensely. The OrthoMaker web app has received two major enhancements as well: multi-step batch processing for raster datasets and the option to export products for offline use. ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8 marks the introduction of a few new products, including ArcGIS Mission and a newly redesigned ArcGIS Workflow Manager server. Moreover, ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8 includes a number of key web apps pre-installed and ready to go upon deployment. Let's take a closer look at these new features. ArcGIS Mission is Esri's command and control software that enables users to provide field operatives with tools they need to plan and execute and analyze operations. ArcGIS Mission incorporates a holistic approach at planning, executing, and recording the nuances of a situational deployment. Mission planning techniques, such as defining a region of interest, incorporating mission-critical data sets, and assigning ArcGIS Enterprise members to a mission, can be done directly through ArcGIS Mission's interface. Mission management involves monitoring and tracking various objectives as they happen. Managers are able to interact with the team while the mission proceeds. ArcGIS Mission comes with a built-in peer-to-peer communication network, allowing operatives to speak to each other and mission leads, enhancing situational awareness. Once mission activity has concluded, managers are able to conduct a temporal analysis of all recorded activity. This enables them to identify and analyze patterns that occurred during the length of the mission. ArcGIS Mission is made up of three parts, starting with ArcGIS Mission Manager. The ArcGIS Mission Manager is a web-based application built for mission analysts to create and provision missions to mission responders. Additionally, the Mission Manager acts as a collaborative space for all mission members. ArcGIS Mission Responder is a mobile application that shares location updates between operatives and serves as a peer-to-peer communicator within the mission network. And last but certainly not least is ArcGIS Mission Server. ArcGIS Mission Server is the back-end processor of ArcGIS Mission. Mission Server facilitates peer-to-peer communication and relays up-to-date location data of all mission members. Now, let's move on to the Track Viewer web app. Enhancing ArcGIS Enterprise's tracking functionality is the Tracker Viewer web application, which comes pre-installed in ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8. This web app exposes ArcGIS tracker tracks in a way that shows unique data attributes and color schemes for each user that uses the Tracker mobile app. Administrators are able to configure the track views for supervisors to monitor a subset of the total Tracker user base. ArcGIS for Power BI is an Esri GIS visual that comes with Microsoft's Power BI software. ArcGIS for Power BI supports integration with ArcGIS Enterprise starting at 10.8. Some exciting licensing changes have occurred at the latest version of ArcGIS for Power BI. The add-on license model has been deprecated in favor of allowing publisher and viewer user types to access ArcGIS for Power BI. Publishers are able to make and publish Power BI reports with the ArcGIS for Power BI visual, while viewers are able to authenticate and view ArcGIS Enterprise content via ArcGIS Power BI visual. Although the add-on license is still required in ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8, administrators should be able to regenerate their portal licenses to include a large amount of add-on licenses granted them in Esri. The most recent release of ArcGIS for Power BI includes long-awaited support for publish-to-web capability. This function allows users to publish Power BI reports containing ArcGIS for Power BI visuals to sites outside of Power BI Online. ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8 comes pre-installed with ArcGIS Quick Capture Designer. This marks the official entrance of ArcGIS Quick Capture Designer to disconnected 10.8 and 10.8.1 ArcGIS Enterprise environments. Quick Capture is a field data collection app that allows users to rapidly collect data points in a mobile app. The Quick Capture Designer allows project leads to design and implement standard experiences for their field workers. Moving on, the ArcGIS Workforce web app also comes pre-installed in ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8 and 10.8.1. The web app enables administrators and dispatchers to plan and assign projects to workers in the field via the ArcGIS Workforce mobile app. Newest upgrades to the ArcGIS Workforce web app at Enterprise 10.8.1 include identifying offline work areas for download by mobile workers and support projects containing over 100 workforce users. Continuing the pre-installed theme, ArcGIS Story Maps also comes pre-installed on ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8 and 10.8.1. User portals maps to create stories with pre-built templates and layouts. Story maps are a powerful way to visualize your organization's geospatial intelligence and data. Administrators can assign certain users with the storyteller user type for those who curate an organization's story maps. Wrapping up the list of pre-installed apps is ArcGIS Experience Builder. ArcGIS Experience Builder creates web pages that incorporate 2D and 3D widgets as well as a host of customization options. Cross-platform functionality is one of the fundamental bases of ArcGIS Experience Builder, and great care has been taken to ensure that all components work across computers, tablets, and smartphones. Last, but certainly not least, I would like to introduce the newly reworked ArcGIS Workflow Manager Server. The newest iteration of ArcGIS Workflow Manager Server introduces scalability and a new management user experience. Administrators of Workflow Manager Server can create and assign jobs to users throughout the organization and monitor the progress of workflows. Administrators are able to configure dashboards and email reports once certain conditions are met. Now that we've covered what app and server extensions enhancements are being implemented at Enterprise 10.8 and 10.8.1, I'm going to hand the mic back to Jill for a sneak peek of what we will see in ArcGIS Enterprise 10.9. Go ahead, Jill.
Thank you, John. Now those were all new features for 10.8 and 10.8.1. As promised, it's time for a sneak peek of what's coming in Enterprise 10.9. By no means is this everything coming in this next release, but John and I will be covering the highlights that you can anticipate. One new thing coming in 10.9 requires a bit of background. ArcGIS Enterprise contains two internal runtimes. Now don't get hung up if you're not necessarily familiar with what a runtime is. Just know that one of these runtimes allows for services to be published from ArcMap. So whether you're using map services, feature services, geocode services, any kind of service that you have published from ArcMap or you're consuming that was published from ArcMap, that service is leveraging the ArcMap-based runtime. Now there's also a second kind of runtime in Enterprise that allows for services to be published from ArcGIS Pro. So even though it may seem that you're just publishing a map service, there's a difference if you're publishing it from ArcMap or ArcGIS Pro. With last year's announcement regarding the ArcMap continued support and no plans for an ArcMap 10.9, we're going to begin phasing out that ArcMap-based runtime from ArcGIS Enterprise. And as customers are migrating their workflows to ArcGIS Pro, it's time for our development team to be focusing our efforts on just that one runtime and to be putting quality into that effort instead of splitting it between two runtimes and all the work associated with that. Starting with the ArcGIS 2021 releases, so this includes Enterprise 10.9 and 10.9.1. Both runtimes are still going to be included. You're going to have those ArcMap-based and ArcGIS Pro-based runtimes. You'll be able to publish from either client. Now this is nothing new. We've had this in previous releases since you were able to publish from Pro to Enterprise. What's going to be new here is that there's going to be tooling included of ArcGIS Enterprise. This tooling will switch compatible services from that ArcMap-based runtime to the ArcGIS Pro-based runtime. You'll be able to switch those compatible services individually through ArcGIS Server Manager. ArcGIS Server will also include a utility that can provide an inventory of your services and let folks know which runtime is being used. Is it ArcMap or ArcGIS Pro? Now you may be seeing compatible here on this slide and thinking that's a bit ambiguous. Compatible services will include most map services and most feature services, which make up the bulk of what is published to ArcGIS Enterprise. Non-compatible services will include those with SOEs and SOIs, those with server object extensions and server object interceptors. Geoprocessing services will be affected as well. In order to leverage the ArcGIS Pro-based runtime, geoprocessing services will need to be using Python 3x instead of Python 2x that was used with ArcMap and that ArcMap-based runtime. There will be different needs for each service if it's not switched with the migration tooling. Now this all paves the way for the changes coming with the ArcGIS 2022 releases. Starting with these releases, only the ArcGIS Pro-based runtime will be included. There will be no ArcMap-based runtime. With this in mind now, it will no longer be possible to publish services from ArcMap or run services that were published from ArcMap. Even if you published a service from ArcMap to Enterprise 10.6.1 and then upgraded to an ArcGIS 2022 release, this service will no longer work if it's still using that ArcMap-based runtime. Now I realize this may sound a bit scary, but keep in mind that the majority of services will still be able to run with that tooling we're introducing in 10.9. That tooling can help identify those services that won't run with a 2022 release. So this doesn't necessarily need to be a scary thing, but rather an opportunity to be proactive and migrate those services before upgrading to a release with only the ArcGIS Pro-based runtime. Now that was a lot of information just to have in a Dev Summit session, but do know that we have a blog out there devoted to the removal of the ArcMap-based runtime from ArcGIS Enterprise. Take a look at it for more information. It's set up as a FAQ of sorts, so it should give you what you need to know for now, but do know that there will be more information closer to release in our documentation and more, so stay tuned for more content. Now that's just one thing that's coming in 10.9. I'm going to hand it off to John for what else is new in ArcGIS Enterprise at 10.9.
Thank you, Jill. I'm going to talk briefly about new changes being made to Portal at Enterprise 10.9. ArcGIS Enterprise 10.9 introduces a few key changes to the Portal user experience. Starting with the Portal homepage, we have made significant graphic updates that polish the look and feel of ArcGIS Enterprise. You are now able to configure a sleeker looking homepage with modern web page design notes. On the authentication front, we have added OpenID Connect as a supported identity provider. Additionally, multi-factor authentication support has been added for built-in accounts, and much, much more. Continuing on the authentication track, ArcGIS Enterprise 10.9 includes a new email configuration experience directly from ArcGIS Enterprise settings page. ArcGIS Enterprise will send out emails under the following circumstances: when an admin resets a member's password, or when a new comment is posted on an item's details page, or when licenses are near their expiration date. So as we're seeing here in the demo, the SMTP server address and other details can be added directly from the Portal settings page. There's no need to go into the backend Portal admin anymore. ArcGIS Enterprise Sites introduces many new features at 10.9. Row visibility options allows limitations to be placed on the accessibility of sites based on a user's permissions and privileges. The ArcGIS Enterprise Sites team has also reworked the delete site process, ensuring that the scope of deletion is clearly communicated. Significant improvements to error handling have been implemented to better communicate what further actions are required of the ArcGIS Site Manager before deletion can occur. Site Preview Mode has been added to the product, allowing users to proofread their work before progressing to the publishing phase. And last but not least, working off of the preview mode, site creators are now able to create draft sites for future publishing. Last, but again, certainly not least, I would like to introduce you all to Esri's newest ArcGIS Enterprise deployment type, ArcGIS Enterprise on Kubernetes. ArcGIS Enterprise on Kubernetes marks Esri's entrance into the cloud-native enterprise software space. The monolithic components of ArcGIS Enterprise, Portal, ArcGIS Server, Data Store, and Web Adapter have all been broken down into roughly 40 containerized processes. Each container is allocated its own resource pool and is orchestrated with Kubernetes, an industry-leading open-source container orchestrator. This release is built for customers who require fast scalability based on unpredictable demand, while also running an efficient cloud environment. Currently, ArcGIS Enterprise on Kubernetes is supported in AWS, Azure, Red Hat OpenShift. Technically speaking, ArcGIS Enterprise on Kubernetes has the following benefits. Let's start with deployment. Traditional ArcGIS Enterprise architecture takes a while to deploy. With ArcGIS Enterprise on Kubernetes, once the proper prerequisite architecture has been put into place and a reverse proxy configured, installation is controlled via deployment script provided by Esri. The script references a Docker repository containing all the container images required to stand up and run ArcGIS Enterprise on Kubernetes. Moving on to updates and upgrades, one of the most significant changes introduced with ArcGIS Enterprise on Kubernetes is how it handles updates and upgrades. Instead of running updates on at least 4 pieces of software requiring significant downtime, these updates are handled in one location, the ArcGIS Enterprise Manager. Updates are conducted on a container-by-container basis, resulting in little to no downtime. Lastly, demand-based container scaling and resource pooling allow ArcGIS Enterprise on Kubernetes to work with the assumption of unpredictable demand. Special focus has been applied to ensuring that the deployment works as efficiently as possible, while also being able to scale up to meet demand. To be clear, ArcGIS Enterprise on Kubernetes is not a replacement for our Windows or Linux options. It simply offers customers who require highly resilient and scalable applications a solution that runs natively on the cloud. To find out more information on what we talked about today, I will speak briefly about Esri's ongoing site improvements and communication efforts. We have added a new Essentials tab to our site at enterprise.arcgis.com. This location contains a quick reference best practices section for standing up and administering your ArcGIS Enterprise deployment. The Enterprise Apps page has been reworked to better index compatible web apps in ArcGIS Enterprise. Lastly, documentation endpoints have been reworked to easily access different server role documentation. To stay up to date on ArcGIS Enterprise product team announcements, I invite you all to follow us on the ArcGIS blog. This forum is used to announce major changes and new updates directly from the Enterprise product team. On that note, GeoNet, the Esri community, has been substantially reworked to bolster collaboration and engagement between users. I know Jill and I are no strangers in this space, and we look forward to seeing and interacting with you all there. Lastly, for a quick What's New in ArcGIS Enterprise videos, I invite you to check out our YouTube page as well. Jill and I appreciate your attention today. We've covered quite a lot of ground, from discussing features in ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8 and 10.8.1 to a sneak peek at ArcGIS Enterprise 10.9. There are many noteworthy changes in these releases, from the implementation of data store item types and shared instance pooling in ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8 to the introduction of ArcGIS Enterprise on Kubernetes and the phasing out of ArcMap-based runtime at ArcGIS Enterprise 10.9. It is our hope that we have provided you with information that will better suit your enterprise-level GIS needs in the future. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for your time.
Hello, everybody. My name is Thomas Edgell, and I'll be moderating this session. We'll be starting the Q&A now, and it looks like we've got a lot of questions in the chat already. So I'm going to be going down these questions, and if we're unable to get to your questions, we'll do our best to follow up with you later, or we recommend asking them in the Ask Our Experts section for ArcGIS Enterprise. But thanks a lot for all of your great questions. And to start, I wanted to start with one question that came into the chat that we wanted to highlight, and that one's for Jill, which is any insight into what type of ArcMap services won't run or easily convert for 2021 and 2022 releases?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. So when the ArcMap-based runtime is removed from Enterprise in next year's releases, I had mentioned there's that migration tooling to help prepare and that some services aren't compatible. And what's not compatible? Well, that's going to include any kind of geoprocessing service, because anything published from ArcMaps using Python 2x, anything from ArcGIS Pros using Python 3x. It's going to include address locators, anything like image service or map service that's published from a raster catalog is going to need to be migrated to something else since those aren't supported in Pro. Anything of SOEs and SOIs are also going to need to be migrated as well. Now, I know that this is a lot of content, so keep in mind that when we have our release next month, we're going to be putting out a blog and some additional information with that. So you can actually have like a direct list of what services are supported, what ones aren't, and how to go about migrating them if they need to be migrated. So stay tuned for more.
Great. Thanks a lot, Jill. Now we're going to go down the questions based on, the ones that got the most upvotes. So to start, we have one that's asking, it says, it is our clients and our observations that ArcGIS Enterprise is more and more supportive of hosted layers as opposed to non-hosted based map image layers and feature services. What do you see in the way of a roadmap for non-hosted support and capabilities, if anything? John, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, great question. So upon release of ArcGIS Enterprise, typically there's a lot of focus, and you are correct, on hosted feature layers, just because we're trying to come at it from a perspective of parity. That being said, non-hosted feature layers and map image layers are still a very viable option moving on in ArcGIS Enterprise. So, I believe there's going to be robust support, and there are really no plans of discontinuing that. That being said, we do have further roadmap sessions later in Dev Summit, so I encourage you to also go there and ask them that question.
Okay, great, thanks. We have another question here, which says, will 10.9 include the new ArcGIS dashboard since it's coming out of beta in ArcGIS Online? John, do you want to take that one too?
Sure, yeah. ArcGIS dashboards, the new version will be out. We know it will be out in ArcGIS Enterprise 10.9.1. That's when we suspect will be out.
Okay, awesome. So we have another one about the short-term version. So since 10.9 is expected to be a short-term version, how soon after 10.9 can we expect 10.9.1? Jill, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, so even though 10.9 is going to be a short-term release, it's still supported for 3 years. So keep that in mind. It's still got a while yet that it's going to be around. And we can expect 10.9.1 by the end of this year. So just stay tuned for that. But because UC is only going to be 2 months after 10.9's release, 10.9.1 will not be coinciding with UC. It'll just be later this year.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jill. Have another question for you, which is, for content migration tools, does it only include hosted layers, or does it also include REST services that use enterprise geodatabase layers?
It's a good question, something we've gotten quite a bit. So those content migration tools are only for hosted content right now. And within our REST API documentation, we have a whole list of all the item types that are supported. Reference services are not currently supported, though it's something we've received a lot of feedback on and we're looking into further. So,
okay, great. Actually, I have another one about migrating an app. There's a question that says, when migrating an app from one portal to another, like staging to prod, is there a way to update the connections, like the staging portal points to the staging database, while keeping the map or app pointed to the production database once moved?
Yeah. So that's totally related to that other question. And because you're only using hosted content, there's no need to update any database connections or anything else like that. And actually what you are asking about is one of the trickier reasons of why we don't have that quite yet. So that's just kind of lumped into the fact of why we're only doing hosted content and you can't update those connections.
Okay, great, thanks. So for John, is it a best practice or recommendation from Esri to enable read-only mode before any patching, updating, or migrating for ArcGIS Enterprise?
Yeah, it's not a bad idea, and great question to put it into read-only mode. Absolutely not 100% necessary to do so, but a lot of our users typically go through and do patching, updating, migrating off hours. If you wanted to implement, another fail-safe to ensure that no one's really on ArcGIS Enterprise messing with anything, you can put it into read-only mode and proceed with the patching, updating, and migrating.
Awesome, great. Next up is a question, will ArcGIS Enterprise use Python 3.6 instead of Python 2.7 in the future? Jill, would you like to take that one?
Yeah. So when you install the enterprise components, you may notice that actually Python 2x and 3x are both included. And as I had mentioned with all of that about the migration involved for your runtimes and everything, ArcMap uses Python 2x, ArcGIS Pro uses Python 3x, Enterprise currently uses both, so they're both already there. And just be sure to making that transition to 3x sooner rather than later.
Sounds good. We got a couple questions about the map viewer beta. One is, when will the map viewer come out of beta on Portal? And we had another one, is the new map viewer going to be released for 10.8.1 or only with 10.9? John, would you like to take that group of questions?
Sure, yeah. So, as we all are aware, map viewer beta was available in ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8.1. It is also going to be available in ArcGIS 10.9 as a separate installer. We suspect, much like with the dashboards question earlier, that the final version of map viewer will be releasing at 10.9.1. It is already out in ArcGIS Online, so it is a good bet to see it coming out in 10.9.1. Question.
Great. Thanks, John. So next up, I have a federated server, but I have to maintain a sister non-federated ArcGIS server to host secured services for third-party asset management applications. Will there be support in Enterprise for these applications that authenticate through tokens? Jill, would you like to take that one?
Yeah. So when you have those services that are secured in that non-federated environment standalone ArcGIS server, those services can totally be consumed in Enterprise, no problem. Now, depending on what application you're using and how you want to embed that can vary a little bit. Do you want to add it as an item directly within the Enterprise portal? You can then leverage the Enterprise portal proxy. If you're using something like the JavaScript API, you might want a different kind of proxy in that type of situation. But short answer is yes, it can work, but because of the variables, depending on your environment specifics, I definitely recommend coming to the Ask the Experts portion of our showcase, and then we can discuss it more in detail there.
Sounds great. Thanks. I have another question for you, Jill, actually, which is the backup with the WebGIS DR tool not safe? Do I need to set the read-only mode before backup with WebGIS DR?
So backing up with WebGIS DR, totally safe. It's even safe before 10.8.1 when we introduced that read-only mode. It's all good to go. But we just included that read-only mode, as John had mentioned, as an extra layer of security, a little bit more of an option. If you have an enterprise portal where you have lots of content being created constantly, it's just an extra fail-safe to make sure that all content makes it over when you do that backup and everything like that, and nothing gets lost. But it's totally safe. You got to just choose what's best for you. If you have an enterprise portal without a lot of content being created, maybe you don't need to use read-only mode. And if you want to talk about this further, once again, come to the showcase and we can talk about that.
Sounds great. I'll give a question to John now. We have one about Power BI. When to expect support for Power BI in a disconnected environment?
Yeah, this is a great question and a bit of an interesting answer. So there are a few ways to kind of take a look at this. So ArcGIS Master Power BI currently is supported for online only ArcGIS Enterprise deployments. You can't connect to disconnected ArcGIS Enterprise deployment. The product team for that is aware of this. They're kind of working with it, but there are some limitations with how Power BI works that are preventing us from going there. Now, if you're asking when will ArcGIS Power BI be available on Power BI Report Server, which is an offline Power BI offering, the answer to that is it is available for the online version of Report Server, meaning that it has connection out to the greater internet. But if it is completely disconnected, it will unfortunately not work. There are a lot of services that are required with ArcGIS Power BI to work, that are hosted in ArcGIS Online, geocoding, base maps, and all that. They don't reference the ArcGIS Enterprise. So, it's something that is being talked about. We do see a lot of traction on that, but currently that is not supported.
Okay, great. Thanks, John.
Sure.
So we had a few questions about the information banner. I will ask one to you, Jill, which is, it moved away, there it is. Is it possible to show the portal information banner or access notices in field apps such as Collector? If not, is this something that will be possible in a future release?
So at this point, the information banner is not going to be showing up in any of those client apps like Collector or Field Maps, or even anything like Experience Builder or Story Maps at this point. Is something we received feedback on and we're looking into, but at this point it's not possible, but we will see.
Sounds good. And one more question for you, Jill. Can content be migrated between Enterprise and ArcGIS Online using the new group migrate functionality?
At this point, No, your content can be migrated from ArcGIS Enterprise to ArcGIS Enterprise, and that's how we're keeping it for now, just within the enterprise space. But also, once again, we've received a lot of feedback since this release last year, and we're looking into this as well for bringing it into enterprise online as well.
Sounds good. I want to throw one more question to you, John, which is, would the information banner work when I apply a security patch for my portal?
Yeah, sure. So you can totally set the information banner prior to applying the security patch, apply the security patch, and then take it off just to let your users know that, hey, we're going to be patching this and this is a warning that this is happening. So yeah, something that can definitely be done and is a good practice to do so. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And now for Jill, will publishing to shared instance pools continue to only be available from Pro at Enterprise 10.9?
Yeah, at 10.9, the shared instance pool, there's no new changes to it. It still needs to be a service that's published from ArcMap using that, ArcGIS Pro using that ArcGIS Pro based runtime.
Great, thank you. Another question about the info banner, actually. Is it possible, I think you already answered this, but is it possible to have the banner and access notice automatically available for client web apps like Web App Builder? I believe you said that's not possible at this time.
Yeah, at this time, it's not possible, but something that we've heard quite a bit about.
Okay. And we got another question about documentation for limitations for the data migration and export tools, if there are any. I'll ask that one to Jill. Do you know if we have any documentation for these limitations or for the data migration?
Yeah, so anything for that content migration and data import and export, there's a lot of it within what's new in the enterprise portal. The enterprise portal documentation has quite a bit. There's a section in the REST API, and it can also be done with Python. So Python API has a little bit of information as well. And actually the documentation will take you from one place to the next. And I know that our documentation may not be always the easiest to find it right away. So if you come to the Ask the Experts, we'll get you going in the right direction. We can actually give you some direct links to get started with.
Okay, great. And I know we've been having a lot of other questions coming in behind the scenes. We have one more up on the chat, which is Enterprise and Kubernetes supported on the Google Cloud Platform? And Jill, would you be able to answer that one too?
So at this point, it's not, but it's something that we have more releases coming. And I would just say for anything else Kubernetes related, do know that there are 2 sessions on Kubernetes, one later today at 2 p.m. Pacific, and then another one at 3:15 p.m. today Pacific time. And then also the Road Ahead Enterprise session can help answer any of those questions as well. And they'll go into more detail than we were able to in this session because we covered everything new in Enterprise, and they're going to be focusing specifically on Kubernetes.
Great. Yes, I know that we got a few questions in about Kubernetes kind of in the back end. So just to echo Jill's words, we do have a lot of sessions coming up about Kubernetes and a lot of experts that we recommend you directing those questions towards. So I know we have a little bit of time left here, and I'm looking through the questions that came in. We have a lot of questions that I think would also benefit from going over to the Ask the Experts section. So we have one about what's new about ArcGIS Online Assistant that I'll move over. For information on that, I would recommend going over to the ArcGIS Online Ask Our Experts area. They should be able to let you know more about that. And we have a few other questions. We have one about improving the SEO of our portal. Is there a way to improve the SEO of our portal? For that, I would also recommend going over to the ArcGIS Enterprise area. We do have product engineers who work with the portal who might be able to help with that. So we have a couple minutes left here. Jill or John, would you like to take any other questions that come in?
I know I had said ask the experts part of the showcase. When I'm saying come to the showcase, I really just mean ask the experts. It's the way that we have it labeled within the Dev Summit website. So just in case you heard me use both interchangeably, I'm referring to it as the same thing where you can look up the products and be able to reach out to us directly. We're on the other side there answering your questions there and can set up meetings as necessary. So sorry if that wasn't clear though.
Yeah. And I also see a question here from Ravin that's talking about some difficulties with high availability. I would also recommend going over to the Ask Our Experts area. Another great recommendation would be our Esri community site. We do have a question board that's dedicated to high availability, which has some really great tips and experts that can help you out there. Great. Well, I think we're rounding out here. We have a few other questions and we'll try and make sure that they're answered sort of after the fact. But for the meantime, I just want to say, thank you all for attending this session and for asking all of your great questions here. Yeah, it's been really helpful to help you all through here, and I hope that you see a lot of the great new functionality in ArcGIS Enterprise. And with that, Jill or John, if you have anything else to say, I think we'll sign off here.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you all for coming.
Great. Thank you, everybody.